In this video, I will briefly comment the paragraphs of the Encyclopedia, paragraph 166 until 180 about judgment. I have made videos about the logic of being, the logic of essence, about the concept, and now I will talk about the judgment because I was reading this today and I understood many things. I don't understand everything, but I will try to make things as intelligible as I can. So, let us begin with the classical syllogism. A syllogism is not a judgment, but they are tied together. But the classical syllogism is: all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. In this syllogism, the singular, that which I will call S, singularity or singular or S, is Socrates. Socrates is a singular individual. The particular, P, is man or human. Socrates is a man, he is human. And the universal is mortal. And Socrates is mortal, so the singular is connected to the universal, is tied to the universal through the mediation of a particularity. Because all men are mortal, and because Socrates is a man, Socrates is mortal. That's a syllogism. How to unite the singular with the universal through the mediation of the particular. That's classical Aristotelian logic. Hegel does not trust Aristotelian logic, but that's just to illustrate. And a judgment, to judge in philosophy means to think, to attribute a predicate to a subject. This is an apple. This is a judgment. This thing is an apple. This apple is a fruit. These are judgments. So to judge is to think, to unite a predicate with a subject. But in ordinary language, to judge means usually to have a negative opinion, to criticize negatively. That's not yet this. To judge in philosophy, to judge is simply to associate a predicate to a subject, or to say the singularity is universal. S is you. Singular is universal. So in this, that's the paragraph 166. In this proposition, in this judgment, it's not a proposition, it's a judgment. The singular is the universal. Socrates is mortal. The subject and the predicate are identical, although they are differentiated. And Hegel says the concept and singularity, particularity, universality are the three moments of the concept. And Hegel says the concept remains identical with itself in its alienation. So someday you will watch some of my videos about schizophrenia, mental illnesses, and you will understand that basically the philosophy of Hegel is conceptual schizophrenia, because the concept is alienated. He differentiates himself from himself, so he loses his mind, so to speak, and he has to recover his mind. So yeah. 167. Hegel says, quite rightly, that all things are a judgment. This object is a book. This lemon is a fruit. It is not me subjectively who predicate a determination to the object. The object is a judgment. It is not just in my mind that say, if I say this thing is a lemon, it's not my subjectivity. It is ontological, but it's also logical, but it's ontological. And Aristotle would say this thing is a lemon. Kant would say we don't know what this thing is. It's just a phenomenon, but the transcendental ego says attribute or predicate, that's a categorical judgment, but it's just a phenomena. It's a manifestation of the thing in itself, but we cannot know the thing in itself. So yeah, and Hegel reunites Aristotle and Kant and says that in my mind this thing is a lemon, but in reality this thing is also a lemon. So yeah, that's why Hegel is ontotheological. The thought of Hegel is ontotheological. So it is a universal which is singularized. And another example, this book, it's a universal which has been singularized. The universal here is the fruit, the particular is a lemon, and the singular is this lemon. Here, the universal is a book, the particular is die Phänomenologie des Geistes, and the singular is this singular book, which has been produced in various pieces. How do you call this? Various exemplars. I don't know how to say it. You get the idea. So when I say gold is a metal, it is objective. It's not just in my mind. It's gold really is a metal. Yeah. 168. The judgment is the realm of the finite because the predicate and the subject, though they are united in the judgment, this apple is a fruit, or this object is an apple, this is a lemon, etc., etc. They are united, but the predicate or the universal can be detached from the singular. If I eat this lemon, the universal, namely the idea of lemonhood, so to speak, that's to speak like Plato, if I eat this lemon or if I eat this apple, all the other apples and the other lemons in the world will not disappear. The idea of the apple, the idea of the lemon, if I get rid of this book, if I eat this book, maybe, the idea of book will not disappear. So this is what Hegel means, that the relationship between Dasein, the presence of the thing, and its universal nature, the apple, the fruit, they are one because this is a singularized universal, a singularized apple, a singularized fruit, but they are like the body and the soul. And the soul can be detached from the body. If I eat this apple, the idea of applehood, or the idea of apples, will not disappear. There are other apples in the world. So that's just to illustrate. And that's why man has a soul, which is his. If I say man is a thinking being, man is the Dasein, the sensuous presence, and the thinking being is the mind, and eventually the mind and the body can detach, and the mind can survive the death of the body. Yeah. 169. If I say S is you, the singular is the universal, which is the judgment. The subject is concrete, which means in the language of Hegel, fully determined. This apple is fully determined because it has a fully determined size, color, shape, weight, a certain determinate number of molecules. It is fully determined. If I think about an apple in general, which is the universal idea of an apple, there are countless singular apples. Each apple is different from all others, but there are countless varieties of apples, which are particularities. And the idea of an apple is in general, has no size, no shape, although it's broadly round and it has a certain limited size. We cannot have a gigantic apple, or maybe there's a big apple. I think it's New York, but yeah. Yeah. Logic is stronger than me. It makes me laugh, even if I don't intend on laughing. But yeah. So the idea of an apple, of an edible apple, although it has a limited size determined by the laws of biology, and yeah, but it has no determinate size, no determinate colors. There are green apples, red apples, yellow apples, etc., etc. So only what is singularized, what is concrete, is fully determined. This apple can be quantitatively measured and determined. The idea of an apple cannot. Yeah. So the predicate is what is abstract or universal, and the subject is what is concrete or singularized. And the subject has its determinacy in the predicate. This object is a book. This is a singularized book. 170. It says that the subject, so it is concrete, and the predicate is ideal. This singular book, the subject is this particular, not particular, this singular book, and the universal is the idea of a book, and the particular is philosophy, more particular German philosophy, more particular Hegel, even more particular the Encyclopedia of the Philosophical Sciences. These are all various modes of particularities. So the predicate is ideal in a sense. It's an idea. The idea of a book goes beyond this singular book. The idea of a fruit goes beyond this singular apple. So it is inherent to the subject. This singular apple carries within itself the idea of applehood, so to speak. That's to speak like Plato, or appleness, whatever. It is inherent in this object. There's the idea of apple, and of fruit, and of organic body, and of physical body, and of geometrical determination, etc., etc. So Hegel says that the subject, because it is fully determined, because it is wirklich, concrete, wirklich, fully determined, here they are kind of synonymous, it has multiple determinacies and determinations. It has many determinations. It is wealthier and broader. It has more wealth and it is more vast than the predicate. If I say this book, there is yellow, it's not painting, it's yellow underlining in the book. It's used because I've read it a lot. There are stains on it. It's a given edition. It was published. It has a specific number. It has a specific price. It is a specific edition. It was published in 2018. And if I say this is a book, I can take any book, like this one, for instance, and book is very abstract, because any book can be a book, but the determinations of a book are way more abstract and way less rich in terms of determination than this singular book, or this singular book, or any singular book. And yeah. So the universal, or the predicate in the judgment, is indifferent to the subject. It goes beyond the subject. It transcends the subject. The idea of the fruit is indifferent of being singularized in a lemon or in an apple. The idea of the fruit goes beyond these two objects. The idea of a book goes beyond these two books. I just noticed that it was in reverse, but Hegel's books can be read in this sense. In this sense, it's not really important because. Okay. 171. So the subject and the predicate, or the singular and the universal, are diverse, they are distinct, but they are nonetheless identical. So it is a very Hegelian idea, namely that there is identity in difference and difference in identity. And here he says basically that the universality is abstract. This singular apple, the concept, the particular concept of an apple is broader. There are various species of apples, green apples, various names, etc. And the idea of the fruit, the universal, is also there are various fruits: mangoes, bananas, lemons, oranges, etc., etc. So, well, at first, the predicate is the abstract universality. It's a sensuous universality. I could also say this object is red. The color red goes beyond this particular red apple. When I say particular, I mean this singular red apple. Or the predicate is, so it can be an abstract universality, a sensuous determination. It can be the genus or the species. When I say genus, is the genre. I'm not a specialist in botanic, but yeah. It is the universality of the concept. And then Hegel says that the judgment, because there are various kinds of judgments in philosophy, they were brought forth by Kant, but they were already known in logic. But Hegel shows how they derive from one another, how the judgment determines itself progressively, step by step, and this is what gives a connection and a meaning to the various kinds, the various species of judgment. So, if I had to give credit to Hegel, Hegel is really rigorous, systematic. He derives everything, he deduces everything, he connects everything, so he deserves credit for that. Okay, 172. We have the qualitative judgment, or the judgment of Dasein, being there. We give to the subject a predicate which is an immediate quality, a sensuous quality. This object is red, for instance. It's broadly round shaped. It's broadly round. This object is made of paper, or this object is I don't know what the color is, gray or dark orange, whatever, or this is made of paper, for instance. This is an immediate quality, and by qualifying an object, this object or this apple is red, it is not yellow. So by giving a determination, it is red, I exclude other determinations. It is not blue, it is not yellow, etc., etc. So we have the positive judgment, this apple is red, and the negative judgment, this apple is not blue. This book is about German philosophy. It is not about politics. But German philosophy eventually includes everything within itself, so that's not a good example. I shouldn't have taken German philosophy. Do I have a book which doesn't talk about everything? I will take this book. This book is about economics, sociology, capitalism, IQ, etc., etc. It is not about poetry. Okay. So yeah. So then, if I say this apple is not blue, I have a negative judgment. If I say this object is an object, this apple is an apple, this book is a book, I have an identical judgment. S is S, the singular is the singular, but it is a tautology, and it is stupid. We do not learn anything. This apple is an apple. You do not learn anything. So that's why Hegel struggles against the law of identity in classical logic, namely A equals A. Someone who says this is the basic law of thought, we should always respect this law, but it's pointless. A book is a book, the sky is the sky, God is God, a building is a building. There is no progress, there is no knowledge, it's nothing. And also it contradicts itself, because if you say A equals A, you already differentiate A from A, because you say that A is A, so it is identical but also different. So that's why in the logic of essence, Hegel criticizes this law of identity, which is der Verstand, the law of der Verstand. Everything is identical to itself, but actually no. And then there's a very peculiar type of judgment, which is called infinite judgment, which is as absurd as the singular judgment. Namely, the example which are given is that spirit is not an elephant, a lion is not a table. So this is kind of a nonsensical judgments, but I don't know why there are such judgments, but this apple is not a book. This is apparently an infinite judgment, which is absurd. Yeah. Now, 174, judgment of reflection. So we have the subject, the singular as a singular, which is the subject, and the predicate is an other. And here it's not very clear, but I translate what I have understood. It's that through existence, the subject is in relationship and in connection with the rest of the world, with other objects, with the entire external world. And these are the kind of judgments which the example which are given is that this object is useful, it is dangerous, this fruit is healthy, it is a judgment. We are already going towards the idea of what we ordinarily think about judgment, namely saying it's good or bad. Here it's not good and bad, it's just the utility, so to speak, the relationship of an object with the external world. This book is made for reading. Made for reading is kind of an inadequate predicate, but you connect the singular with others through the mediation of the predicate. That's what I understand as of now. Then 175, he talks about the individual singular judgment, which would probably be the subject is the subject. I'm not sure because there's no example, but here it's quite vague, but it's not really important. Then there is the plural particular judgment, which is by its very nature positive and negative. Some books talk about philosophy. If I say some books, it means that there are a plurality, a particularity. It means that there are books who do not talk about philosophy. So if I say some fruits are healthy to eat, if I say some, which is particular or plural, it means that some are not healthy. A rotten fruit is not healthy to eat. So by saying some, by qualifying, although it's by reflecting here, by positing, the positive includes within itself the negative. Some countries are democratic. This is a plural particular judgment. It implies logically that some countries are not democratic. And then we have the total sum, which means that basically all apples are fruits. All apples, whatever their colors, they are all fruit. So this is how we can say, if we say all apples are fruit, we can translate this by singularizing the subject, namely saying that apple is a fruit. The apple is a fruit. All men are thinking beings can be translated as man is a thinking being. All men are created equal. Man is created equal. But then the problem is, if there's only one man, to who is he equal to? But it works better with freedom. Or if all men are free, in a sense that their purpose is to achieve freedom, it means that man is free. If all the singularities of a predicate or a universal category, if they all have the same characteristic in common, it means that the total sum, the predicate or the universality, can be singularized. I hope that's clear. And then 176, he says that the subject, the singular is the universal, the subject is the predicate, but there is it is the bringing forth of the necessary relation. It is the way it is because it has to be. It is necessary. Yeah, and I will give example. The judgment of necessity is when the subject is tied to a predicate. The singular is universal. The subject has a predicate, and here it is. For instance, the predicate is the substance of the subject, the nature of the subject, the genera of the subject, the species of the subject, and we call this a categorical judgment. If I say this apple is red, it is not a judgment of necessity because I could have a green apple. But if I say this apple is a fruit, it is necessary because every apple, real apple, and if you want to know what real is, that's the logic of being, the logic of essence. But a real apple is a fruit. An image of an apple is not a fruit. The company Apple is not a fruit. The Big Apple, New York, is not a fruit. But a real apple is a fruit. It is the nature, the substance, the genera. I am a human being, partly, I guess. And every human is a human. Homo sapiens is the genera, the nature in terms of biology. But then the species are various. European Caucasoid, non-European Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, Australoid, Native Indians, Hottentots, etc., etc. So every species of mankind is a species of mankind. So the genera contains within itself the species, and every human is mediated by a certain species, but also belongs to the universal genera. So every man, every human is a human being. This is a categorical judgment. It is necessary. Then he can be black, white, whatever, Asian, he can be male, female, but his universality is human, mankind. That's categorical. Then we have hypothetical judgments. It is, if I say if, then, if this is an apple, then it is a fruit. If this is a book to read, then it is readable. Then the question is, there might be books with non-readable languages. I mean, not foreign languages, but languages which do not mean anything. So is an aggregate of layers of paper with nonsense written in it. Is it a book? I don't know. But let us say, okay, if this is a book about German philosophy, it's very difficult to read. That's a hypothetical judgment. And it is a book about German philosophy, so it's really difficult to read. And the if-then is used in modern logic in computer programming, algorithm, if then, if you do this, then that. That's from ground to consequence, principle, consequence, basically. And third, there is the genera, the universal, is either or, either A or B, but as well A as B. A fruit can be either an apple or a lemon, but a fruit is an apple as well as a lemon. A fruit can be an apple or a lemon, but whatever the fruit is, it doesn't cease to be a fruit, whether it's an apple or a lemon. So disjunctive mean separation, but the unity is preserved. Men, human beings, can either be African, Negroids, European Caucasoids, non-European Caucasoids, Mongoloids, etc. But mankind doesn't cease to be what it is, so the genera doesn't lose itself in the species. It remains what it is in its differentiation. So yeah. And the universal here is the genera which contains within itself all species. Yeah. Now, 178. The judgment of the concept. The content of the judgment of the concept is the universal with the complete determinacy. And here it is, we have the assertoric, I don't know how it's in English, assertorisch in German, assertoric, to assert, assertoric judgment. And here we enter the realm of what we in ordinary consciousness call judgment, and to judge, namely to determine if the determination precisely of an object corresponds to what it should be, so to speak. If I say this apple is red, it doesn't take a lot of judgment to say this. You have to, if you are blind, you cannot say that. But if you are not blind, you can say this apple is red. Or Daltonians would say, okay, this apple is blue. But people who are not Daltonians or who are not blind, they can say this apple is red. But that doesn't require a lot of intellectual effort. A real judgment, which is called assertoric judgment, means to determine whether it's tasty or not. You can say, you can eat the apple and say, okay, it's tasty, it's healthy. Eventually, if you have the mindset of an ecological leftist, you can judge whether it's healthy for the planet, in a sense, where does it come from? Has it brought pollution by being imported? Has it been grown locally, or has it been imported from another country, which brings pollution? It is detrimental to the planet, whatever. That would be an ethical judgment. And to judge in this sense, namely to predicate a determination which determines whether an object corresponds to what it should be, ideally, requires... how should I explain? It is very easy to judge, in a sense that you can watch a movie and say, okay, this movie is boring, this politician is corrupt. It's very easy to judge, and people judge in everyday life. But so it's the easiest thing to do, to judge in the moral sense, good, bad, true, false, just, unfair, etc. But actually, it's also the most difficult thing to judge properly, and that's why there are cinema critiques, gastronomic critiques, critics of art who have a real sense of judgment. They know how to judge works of art, good food or bad food also, movies. So to have a real sense of judgment, to be able to really judge with accuracy and honesty and knowledge, it requires knowledge, effort, focus, and it's very difficult. So yeah, to judge in this sense is the easiest and also the most difficult thing to do. Uh, 179. So yeah. Yeah. Here we have the problematic judgment. Problematic judgment means it is that way, but you can say the opposite. So it's possibility, so to speak. You could say this book is boring and useless. It's just the delirium of a crazy speculative German metaphysician. But you could say also, no, it's a work of genius. So you can have both judgments, so it's problematic. Then we go back to the previous, what I said previously, that in order to judge the quality of this book, you can say, okay, I will read 3 pages, I don't understand anything, I will quit. Or you can put your mind and your effort into trying to read and understand the book, and then you can appreciate whether it's a good book or not. So yeah, problematic judgments means you assert a particular determination, and because it is particular, the opposite determination can also be asserted. This movie is good, no, I think this movie is bad. Who's gonna decide? I don't know. And yeah, the subject is also tied to a genre, and here we have the apodictic judgment, which is the judgment. It is certain, so to speak. It is necessary. It is absolute certainty. So we have assertoric, namely the assertion, we say how things are. Problematic, they might be different, and assertoric. Assertoric, this is how things are. Problematic, they might be different, and apodictic, they have to be that way. And the illustration given here is this house, which is built in such a way, is either well built or wrongly built. So this house is the singular, house is the genera, the universality. There are many houses, and this house is the singular house, which is built in such a way, the design, the architecture of the house, it's a particularity, and it's either well built or not well built. And here you, in order to appreciate, like I said, a product, a work of art, you have to, not only of art, but any product, a piece of bread, a song, whatever, the work of a bureaucrat, the speech of a politician, this video maybe, you have to compare, so to speak, the singularity with the genre, this movie with the idea of a movie, the work of the producer or the director, which is the particularity of the movie, which unites the singularity with the universal, and then you can judge, is it a good movie or a bad movie? Yeah, and Hegel will say later that the purpose, the end goal of every concept is to become adequate to itself. Namely that, Hegel will say later that a true house, a real house, is a house which is well designed. It has no flaws, it's perfect. It's made by a great architect. And in this sense, as he says somewhere else, that a badly built house, a house which is shaking, which is falling into ruin, the heating doesn't work, running water doesn't work. So the idea of the house can still be recognized, but it's a bad house. So that's why Hegel says that even a bad house is still a house, but the purpose of a house is to be a good house. And it's true for everything. The purpose of God is to be the real God. the good God, hopefully, the God that everyone loves, hopefully. So yeah, that's the purpose. And a thing, anything, is false as long as it is not adequate to its own concept. That's a way of thinking. And he says that all things are a genera, a universality, which is their determination and their goal, their purpose, so to speak. They are all things are a singular Wirklichkeit, a singular actuality, a concrete thing, which is Wirklich, which is fully determined. So it is singular, it is fully determined. In a particular constitution, it is constructed, built, structured in a particular fashion, and this particularity can be more or less adequate to the universality. The house can be more or less well built. A book can be more or less well written. A video about Hegelian logic can be more or less enlightening. This one, if you have watched the 41 minutes, I don't know what you say. Maybe you will say, oh, it could have been better. But I will improve eventually. It's just, I have the concept of a video about logic, and eventually I will have to make this adequate to the concept and make great videos about Hegel's philosophy. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. But yeah. And yeah. And 180, the immediate constitution of the subject is the foundation of the judgment and the link towards the universality. And this unity of the subject and the predicate, or the singular and the universal, is precisely the concept, and the relation or the relationship which mediates the subject and the predicate is the syllogism. Here, for 42 minutes, I have talked about judgments, and the next development is to talk about syllogism. How is the singularity tied, mediated, united with the universal through the mediation precisely of the particularity? And this Trinitarian movement, singular, particular, universal, is syllogism, which is rational thinking. And Hegel shows how the concept becomes judgment and the judgment becomes syllogism. I have tried to make things as intelligible, as enlightening as I could at this moment in time, because I myself do not understand everything. Plus, the Encyclopedia is simplified logic. That's the simplified version. In this edition, there are no Zusätze, which are the additions which make enlightenment. So I really go to the point. But hopefully, if you've watched this video, now you can pick up the book and understand more easily what Hegel means. That's what I had to share.